Well, are you at that stage with your German that your sentences are all starting to sound, well, a bit the same and frankly, a bit too simple? Maybe you can say things like, ich trinke einen Kaffee, ich wohne in Frankfurt, ich bin 24 Jahre alt, ich esse gern Nudeln, ich habe blaue Augen, ich spreche Deutsch. And that's great. Perfect even, and correct of course, but just about as exciting as a shopping list. If you're learning on your own, then this is where a lot of people get stuck, and not because you don't know enough words, but because you've never practiced joining sentences together to provide more reasons, opinions, and other more complex information. So today, I want to show you why that happens and give you a simple system for fixing it. I'm going to call it the ladder of practice. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to take any simple sentence and build it up rung by rung into the kind of longer connected German sentences that you actually hear people speak. And stick around because at the end, I've got a quick summary of all 8 rungs, all 8 steps, plus a free downloadable guide to go with it. So if you've seen my Circle of Practice video and downloaded the free guide, then you'll know I'm a big fan of self-narration, describing what you're doing out loud on your own without having to rely on a partner. Now, the circle is brilliant for one thing, drilling a single clause, word, order, cases, adjective endings. We practice spinning one sentence in every direction. But real fluency also means stacking clauses on top of each other, giving a reason, a contrast, a condition, describing something. That's a different skill. So today we're introducing a different system. Here's the idea. You start off with one simple true sentence about yourself. Let's take the obvious one. Ich lerne Deutsch. That's the bottom rung of the ladder. And then you're going to climb up one rung at a time, adding a new kind of connector and clause at each step. We're on the first rung. Übrigens, das ist unsere Leiter. Und das sind die Sprossen, so the rungs. This is just the base sentence. Subject, verb, object. Ich lerne Deutsch. Well, let's make it up to rung 2. We can use one of these coordinating conjunctions. Und, aber, oder, denn. Maybe even sondern. These conjunctions join 2 complete independent sentences and, good news, nothing changes it with the word order. You're just adding a second normal sentence on with a comma. So maybe something like this. Ich lerne Deutsch und ich übe jeden Tag. Simple, particularly because the word order stays the same in both sentences, or clauses actually. So let's keep on climbing up. Well, we're on rung 3 now. We're going to use the subordinating conjunction weil to give a reason. This is excellent practice. This is the first rung where something actually changes. The verb of our second clause gets saved up for the end of the clause. Otherwise, all other words are going to stay in the same order that we're used to. So you might say something a bit like this. Ich lerne Deutsch, weil ich nach Deutschland ziehen möchte. Or ich lerne Deutsch, weil meine Freundin Deutsche ist. Or ich lerne Deutsch, weil ich in Deutschland studieren möchte. So think about some of the other possibilities so that you can vary what you're able to say and do it quickly. But let's move on and up to rung 4. Here we're going to use the subordinating conjunction das. This is a conjunction that uses the same end of clause rule as well. And it's especially useful after opinion verbs like glauben, denken, hoffen, finden, wissen. So maybe you might say, ich glaube, dass Deutsch nicht so schwer ist. But you could use much the same base sentence as before. Ich finde es gut, dass ich Deutsch lerne. And you might add in a modal verb to make it fit better. Ich hoffe, dass ich Deutsch lernen kann. But let's move on up to the next rung, rung 5, obwohl, even though or although. This is a really handy conjunction that obeys that same verb to the end rule, but contrasts two ideas. So you might add on these contrasts after your base sentence. Ich lerne Deutsch, obwohl ich wenig Zeit habe. Ich lerne Deutsch, obwohl ich mir die Vokabeln nie merken kann. Ich lerne noch Deutsch, obwohl ich seit 20 Jahren in Deutschland lebe. But let's climb on and up to our next rung. And this is going to retain that verb at the end of the clause rule that should be becoming more automatic and natural by now. And it will introduce conditions, which are always handy. So, rung 6, we're going to use wenn. This is our equivalent of if or whenever. And here's a nice trick. Try starting the sentence with the subordinate clause instead of the main one. And that pushes the whole sentence into a verb-verb order in the middle of our complete sentence, which allows us to practice a different structure that is also a really common one. So maybe you might have something like this. Wenn ich Zeit habe, lerne ich Deutsch. Or start with the original idea as the condition. Wenn ich Deutsch lerne, kriege ich immer Kopfweh. Wenn ich Deutsch lerne, fühle ich mich immer besser. Okay, on to our next rung. And we've got a specific moment in the past waiting for us. On rung 7, we need to use als. It means when. And it's the one people often confuse with wenn. So it's really worth spending a little bit of time to get used to how this is used. Als ich jung war, habe ich nie Deutsch gelernt. You'll notice that we're also using the past tense because that's what als does. We could also say, als ich Deutsch gelernt habe, habe ich gute Noten bekommen. We're getting close to the top now, so hang on tight. This is where we get to rung 8, and we need to introduce a relative clause and a Relativsatz. Instead of adding a whole new idea, you're going to be describing the noun itself. So depending on your original sentence, you may need to add in an article or slightly vary your base sentence, but the concept and the topic should remain the same. So maybe not ich lerne Deutsch, but ich lerne einen deutschen Dialekt, der weit verbreitet ist. Or maybe Deutsch ist eine Sprache, die ich schon lange lernen wollte. So you've worked your way up to pretty near the top. And you can do the same thing with lots of different sentences. You could try the verb kochen, and standing on that first rung, you might have a base sentence like this. Ich koche jeden Abend. Moving up to the next rung, we're adding in, say, aber. Ich koche jeden Abend, aber am Wochenende bestelle ich mir manchmal etwas. On the third rung, we use weil. Ich koche jeden Abend, weil ich gerne etwas esse, was mir schmeckt. Up on the fourth rung, it's getting already a little bit harder because we're going to be using das. Ich finde, dass Kochen eigentlich ziemlich entspannend ist. On our next rung, we use another subordinating conjunction, obwohl. Ich koche jeden Abend, obwohl ich manchmal keine Zeit habe. Wenn is waiting for us on the next rung. Wenn ich müde bin, koche ich lieber etwas Einfaches. And the other when word, als, is up on the second last rung. Als ich noch bei meinen Eltern gewohnt habe, habe ich nicht gekocht. And now we're at the top and we need a relative clause. Ich koche gern Gerichte, die schnell fertig sind. So now if you're up on the top of the ladder, you'll be able to do quite a bit. So I've got this advanced tip for you. Once individual rungs and stages stop feeling like a puzzle, try jumping up the ladder more quickly, maybe 2 rungs at a time, a weil clause and a wenn clause in one breath perhaps. Ich lerne Deutsch, weil ich reisen will, wenn ich genug Geld gespart habe. This is great practice because you're learning to think in discrete steps And in this way, you end up with a structure that easily replicates exactly what real spoken German sounds and feels like. So that's the ladder of practice. 8 rungs and 8 ways of connecting one idea to another. Let's have a quick look at what we've just been working through. On our first rung, we've got our Grundsatz, your base sentence. On the second rung up, we've got a coordinating conjunction, und, aber, oder, denn, and no word order change needed. But there is on the third rung because we're using weil, and our verb needs to go to the end in that clause. Same thing with das, our verb needs to go to the end, and often after opinion verbs. With the fifth rung, we find obwohl, even though, and the same rule applies. On our sixth rung, we've got wenn, if, or perhaps whenever, and this can be used at the beginning of the complete sentence, starting with our subordinating conjunction. Als, on the seventh rung, represents or introduces one particular moment in the past. And the final rung, we've got the relative pronoun. And this is going to allow us to describe the noun itself. If this is something that you think you would like to practice, then there's a free ladder of practice guide to go with this video. You'll find the link in the description. It's got all 8 rungs worked through with 4 different example sentences, plus 10 practice ladders of your own to fill in and an answer key. And if you haven't seen the circle of practice video yet, that's the other half of this system. You can watch that one next up here. So, danke fürs Zuschauen und bis bald.